SaveWithConrad.com.
Yeah, I'm Justin Ruffin from Knoxville, Tennessee. What got me to Save with Conrad was the 83 Weeks podcast. I really wasn't thinking about getting rid of any debt. I just wanted to cash out some equity in the house to do remodeling. But I did both, so that was pretty awesome. Worked out great. Redid the foyer, built pantry space, and there's little odds and ends when I first bought the house that I wanted to take care of, and we were able to take care of it. So, yeah, paid off 2 cars and some credit card debt. So probably all in all, get $30,000 in that. And then I got some $30,000 more equity out of the house, and still plenty of equity left over. So payment's good. I lowered my interest rate. I'm in a much better spot than I was. Super easy. Everybody was great. Very, very awesome people. Francis and Steve were great to work with. They were awesome. Made it for a very easy, seamless experience. I'd probably say all in all, probably $1,000 a month at least. I'm lowered my interest rate, especially the way the interest rates are right now, which is, that's amazing. I'm Justin Bruckman from Knoxville, Tennessee. I saved over $1,000 with SaveWithConrad.com, and I did a lot of renovations with that money as well.
NMLS number 2129, Equal Housing Lender. SaveWithConrad.com. Hey, it's Conrad Thompson, and you're listening to My World. And of course, we couldn't do it without the Hall of Famer, the greatest professional wrestler of all time, your friend and mine, Double J, Jeff Jarrett. Jeff, how are you, man?
Oh, Connie, I hope I can just, match your energy level. Your Monster Energy drink, all caffeined up. We're live on YouTube. Thanks, everyone, for joining us, and we're going to have a little fun today, talk a little wrestling. I have no idea what you have on your mind today, but as we continue to groove in this format, and you have the drops of My World, and I'm just curious, rumor has it, maybe not, you're adding to your sound effects over there. I don't know, but if you've got the right sound effects for the Tennessee Titans, we still ass. That's a whole other conversation.
Here's the official sound effect of the Tennessee Titans. Are you ready?
Yeah. The lowest output in points since 1985.
Well, listen, I know that we're talking about American football to start the show, and I love doing this, but I do have to ask, as you woke up this morning, as we're recording on a Monday morning, is there anyone in the world you'd rather be more than James Franklin?
Connie, just right out of the top, you punched me between the eyes. It's very, very hard. Let me see. We want you to take not just a few weeks off. Hey, can you get out of here and take that $59 million? I think it's $660,000 a day or whatever crazy. Conrad, what world are we living in that you get fired and you get, I don't know. So for you, not folks not in America, there's a college football coach that is the 3rd winningest coach over the last couple of years.
4th. I think Dan Lanning is technically ahead of him too. So he's the 4th winningest coach in college football, and he has ties to Nashville. Years ago, he was the Vandy head coach, and he was responsible for really revitalizing Vanderbilt. And I know that people these days say it's Diego Pavia, blah, blah, blah. It was actually James Franklin, and he did so well there. He took a kind of questionable job at Penn State, still in the shadows of everything that happened with their controversy. And he's been phenomenally successful, but not enough. The preseason rankings were his death knell, I think. I mean, without those, setting such unrealistic expectations, maybe he'd still be there. But I think to myself, imagine if I could get fired and get $49 million to not work. Sign me up, Jeff. If Tony Khan had that in his AEW contract, would you try to get fired today? I would try to get fired today.
Yesterday.
Yeah. Yes.
He's going to get the money regardless. He'll probably do some sports casting work. He'll do a lot of his hobbies, whatever that may or may not be. Man, the tricky Nick Saban, brilliant. He saw the NIL money coming. And for those that don't get that, they are now paying college kids boosters. So you have no idea. I mean, Conrad, I'd like to say I'm a grown adult, but we all have our good days and bad days. Can you imagine depending your livelihood on kids between 18 and 22 that some of these situations, not James Franklin, but some of this coaching situation, the starting quarterback makes more money than the coach as a 20, 21-year-old kid. Saban was brilliant in getting out because he knew the mad world was coming. Man, I can't even wrap my head around it. It's okay if you have a losing season. Let's reconsider. But Conrad, I read something early this morning. I guess the Adidas contract, which is more money involved.
I heard that. They're paying it. Can you believe that?
Where do they get the ROI on that? There's something deep here we don't know. But yes, Conrad, I'm just wondering on this podcast with AI, if we can figure out clone my voice, can you fire me and I just keep getting paid?
Buddy, I don't think we're that far away. And AI, here's the funny part. AI Jeff Jarrett. Can you imagine how many? I mean, we've seen how many lives the real life Jeff Jarrett has. Like every time you count the real life Jeff Jarrett out, that sumbitch just comes back stronger than ever. The AI version, he would just take over all of podcasting, Jeff. We should do that.
Oh, all fun. Well, happy My World Recording Day, Conrad.
Well, it ain't going to be all happy because about a week from now, you and I are going to be sitting down here and all the crying will be over.
Ooh.
The third Saturday in October is known for Alabama, Tennessee, and we've made bets for a few years in a row about this game. Are you willing to wager anything on your Volunteers? Because it feels like right now you'd be volunteering an ass whooping. I mean, y'all just barely eked past Arkansas. What's wrong with y'all over there?
Boy, you know, that's going to be a tough call. I do know, Conrad, I got complete confirmation. Was that yesterday? Yes. Yesterday, between the early window of NFL between 12 and 3, there was some talk. And yes, one Cody Angle at Karen's birthday brunch we had yesterday, he let us know Roll Tide. There's no way he would cheer for the because his girlfriend's a Vol. So Cody's got to have competition. So he told me, make sure you tell Conrad on the podcast, Roll Tide for him.
Glad to hear it. Glad to hear it. Welcome to the fan club, Cody Angle. You can feed the bear again. Hey, listen, this weekend is Top Guy Weekend. I want to give a special shout out to Tony Flowers. He's one of our top guys. Hope to see him this weekend. He's been with us since a few days before Christmas in 2022.
Wow.
And he'll be with you and I this weekend in St. Louis. The question is, we've had a lot of requests. Are there any chances that Cody Angle makes an appearance at Top Guy Weekend in St. Louis?
I don't think the odds are good, but you never know. I mean, Conrad, it's just simple, you know. When it's all about priorities. I believe young Emily has.
Well, I got to talk to her now. She's the booking agent.
I think she may have jumped out. Yeah, the Queen will be there this weekend, but I'm not sure Cody's going to be with us.
Well, I do want to ask about the Queen. As we were recording, yesterday was her 29th birthday. Yep. She looks as fabulous as ever. How did you guys celebrate the big 2-9 for Mrs. Jarrett, the Queen?
Well, you really want to know? At her request, no, we had a brunch. All the kids came with Jared's at college. But anyway, had a nice brunch and ate real good. But she wanted Conrad. This is a girl from Greensburg, Pennsylvania, and she's been in Hendersonville since 2010. So that's 15 years. She wanted to go fishing. So Cody's into fishing right now. So we went out on the boat and got a line wet, didn't catch a lot, but we had a good time, a lot of fellowship, and she had a grand old time. So that is exactly what we did. Gave her presents, and yep, that's what we did, Conrad. We went out fishing. We got to get down to your lake, man. Old Lake Gunnersville. There's some prime bass fishing down here, but you know, I'm just doing the math right fast. We just acknowledged, and this is accurate, that she celebrated her 29th birthday. Is that right? Yeah.
But you said she moved to Hendersonville 15 years ago. I knew you were a Memphis guy, but what exactly is going on there?
Whoa. That's We're live too, pal.
We got to give a little love for the Summer Ball Summit. It's that time of year, Jeff. It's going to be here before you know it. I know it's coming up, I think, next week. Tell us about this, Jeff.
Next Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. And I appreciate you giving us a little the ability to shout out here on my world. But anyway, it is something that Golden Rule Entertainment, that's the group I'm with in my baseball ventures. Shout out Jamie Toole. He'll be rolling into Nashville. He loves Nashville, but it's when some like-minded folks, and I think there's 22 teams, 6 different leagues are going to be represented, but we all get in a room down at the, I think it's Hyde House, but at Hotel Convention Center down in Nashville. And we just kind of swap stories. And I asked Jamie, it was 2 years ago, 3 years ago, when he was developing the concept. I said, Jamie, what is the Summer Ball Summit about? He said, at the end of the day, it's getting in a room and figuring out what's working and what's not working for minor league baseball. But most importantly, how we make sure we have as much black ink and little as red ink. But it's good, man. There's all kind of things, merch and strategies and ticket sales. And we've got folks from the Titans. We've got folks from not only all over the country, but all over Nashville. So it's really, really speakers for 3 days. Each speaker is only like half hour. I'm going to be speaking on 3 generations and how promotions have changed through the years. But no, looking forward to it. Summer Ball Summit. You can go to the website right now. I believe Jamie said that we're close to capacity, but he never shuts it off. He figures it out because not everybody goes to every session, but there it is, summerballsummit.com, Nashville, Tennessee, next Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. That would be, the 20th, 21st, and 22nd. So come on out.
More importantly, though, the very next day, right after Summer Ball Summit is complete, on October 23rd, something is going to happen for the first time in the history of Jeff Jarrett's career. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking to yourself, my man started wrestling like 30-something years ago. Whatever could be a first. But I think this is a first. Jeff, you're going to be wrestling in your hometown of Hendersonville, Tennessee, and somehow it's never happened before. Is that right?
I'm not sure old Jerry Jarrett, as they used to call him, Little Man, or my grandmother, Christine Jarrett. I'm not so sure. I like to make them proud in the industry. I think my dad's probably gotten a few chuckles because he just had he said it in some, I'll call it some Larry Thompson language, but in different flavors. But he was always very, very against running a wrestling show in his hometown because there's something can and will, it's very hard to please everybody because business is business. But the great folks of the city of Hendersonville, Andy Gilley, parks director, reached out, gosh, a while ago, 8-9 months ago, and said, hey man, you've never wrestled here. Can we talk you into it? And I'm like, what are you thinking? So yeah, Conrad, I won't get any more long-winded than that. But for the first time in my career, Hendersonville, Tennessee, I've always gone by that, hailing from born and raised here. So we are the Pig Fest. It's a big barbecue cooking contest that started 4 or 5 years ago in COVID, actually, as a fundraiser, because they had to pivot because of the social distancing. So they did something outside, and that turned into a 2-day event for the last couple of years with musical acts on Friday and the barbecue on Saturday. And now they've talked me into wrestling. So no, man, we got a cool card. Folks have been very, very cool about it, but it is definitely a nice flavor of professional wrestling. We've got a micro match. We've got a concession stand brawl. We've got 2 title matches. We've got a good old 6-man tag. My man Satnam Singh. I think there's some folks in Hendersonville very excited to see Jay and Satnam. So there's the Queen, and VIP sold out within about 48 hours, even if that. But man, yes, not Thursday, October 23rd. So if you're listening to this, it will be Thursday, October 23rd. Go get your tickets at ProWrestling Tix. That's TIX.com. Conrad, boy, oh boy, it is going to be a lot of fun. One of my daughters yesterday at the brunch said, Dad, I'm bringing a lot of friends. I'm like, oh boy. She's like, yeah, they've never seen you wrestle. I said, oh boy. So it's going to be fun, Conrad. It is. It's going to be.
It is going to be fun. ProWrestlingTix.com is where you can grab those tickets. VIP meet and greet start at 5:30. Doors open at 6:30. The action starts at 7:30, and it is a loaded card. You heard Jeff allude to the 6-man. He's going to step in the ring for, I think, like the 7th time this year against Jay Lethal and Satnam Singh, who, even when my dad at 60 some odd years old met Satnam, he couldn't help but say, can I get a picture? You have to see this to believe it. By the way, on the other side of the ring, QT Marshall, one of the most underrated wrestlers in America right now. Brody Booker, who you may have seen in developmental for WWE before. I think he's got a lot of upside. And Elijah Drago, who just is really cutting his teeth and getting started. We plugged him last week. I think he's got a lot of upside. But everybody knows how we feel about Adam Priest here on the show. He's going to be in action on that show. You mentioned it earlier. Eric Young will be here. What about the concession stand match with James Storm? That's right. The Cowboy will be here. We've even got some ladies action. And how about the Lucha Libre match? Ray Fury, who I'm a big fan of, and Very Morales, man, an incredible performer I've fallen in love with in 1FW. But you've even got the old school legends. Ricky Morton will be here with the Southern Six. There's something for everybody. I want you to go out of your way to go see this show, ProWrestlingTix.com. It's going to be a who's who. Almost everyone I know in North Alabama who's a wrestling fan is making their way there. You should be too. That's ProWrestlingTix.com. Jeff, are you getting the promoter buzz here? I mean, it feels like, are you getting the bug? Are you back in? What are you working on?
You'll like this because they've done a TV buy. They've done a big radio buy. We've got digital marketing. The billboard out on the bypass where there's really two main exits that bring you into town. They've had Jeff Jarrett's All-Star Super Slam out there for, a month now, whatever it may be. But they noted to me, said, hey, Jeff, you'll be happy with this. We did buy some advertising in the Tennessee-Alabama game. So I said, all right. So, but that's Conrad. I always have the promoter bug in me. We'll talk about. I had an idea strolling down the lake yesterday that we should chat about, but the promoter bug is always in me.
I gotta tell you, I can't help but notice that I tried to throw out the gauntlet for a challenge between you and I, some sort of a bet with Alabama and Tennessee, and you just pivoted real fast.
So what do we do? You
got. I mean, you're going to be wrestling and making a public appearance on the 23rd. I almost wonder if Alabama wins, do you want to come to the ring and have to wear some Alabama gear? No. You get booed in your own hometown. If you want to play a heel, that's how you do it in Hendersonville.
They hate Alabama worse than they hate Georgia. Those Georgia boys are threatening that QT's a Georgia resident. Drago and Brady, they're all Georgia boys. They're going to be talking some Georgia smack. But the only people that they hate worse than the Bulldogs are the Crimson Tide around here. Boy, you talk about some real heat. Whew.
Drago's not a Georgia boy. He's from the Ukraine. He barely speaks English.
But they live down in or trained down in there. They may not live down there, Conrad. So.
Hey, let's just get a one shot on Jeff right fast, and you football fans will know where I'm going here.
Uh-oh.
Jeff, hypothetically, if you were a Georgia head coach, can you show us how you clap? No, that's how Tennessee head coaches clap.
Oh.
You didn't see this with Kirby Smart?
No, I did
not.
Kirby
Smart revealed himself to be the biggest heel in all of football. So he pretended like he didn't call a timeout, and he tried to say, no, I was saying they're going to clap. Listen for the clap. And here's how Kirby Smart was trying to explain his clap. That's how Kirby Smart claps. And then when he gets face to face with the ref, he does this. No, I was clapping. But if you look at the tape, he was doing this. So I'm just saying, Kirby Smart, there was a guy who said this once about Tennessee. They dirty. They low down, they lying, they cheaters,
snitches.
They snitches. It's hate week here.
Did he really Did he get away with this?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Gaslit the shit out of that referee. He's got to get fined. Ever since Tom Ritter's been out of action, the officiating in the SEC has gone to hell.
Yeah, big time. Shout out, Tom. Oh my gosh! Wow.
Yeah, this is how Georgia coaches clap now. So
makes a lot of noise that way.
They were not making that noise over the weekend. I can't wait for us to talk about what an incredible weekend it was. We are going to be talking about Bound for Glory and the Dudleys and the Hardy Boys. Oh my. We're going to be talking about Takeshita, which is some late breaking news this morning. Awesome. We're also going to talk about AJ Styles and John Cena, one of the more emotional matches of the year. And who could forget Jeff Jarrett's top 5 decade definers? All that and more on today's episode of My World. Stay tuned. We're going to start talking about Bret Hart and a big anniversary. But before we do, I got to tell you about our friends at Stopbox. They've been a longtime advertiser here on the program. And let's be real. If you own a handgun for self-defense, you already know it comes with serious responsibility. You need it secure, but you also need it accessible when it matters most. Too often, that means choosing between locking it away or leaving it out, vulnerable to kids, guests, or even intruders. And that's the problem that Stopbox USA set out to solve. I think they nailed it with the Stopbox Pro. It's 100% mechanical, keyless, battery-free lockbox that gives you instant controlled access to your firearm. No electronics, keys, or codes required. That's right. No keys, no codes, no apps. Just a patented 5-button locking system that responds only to your unique input. It's fast, intuitive, and built for muscle memory, so you're not thinking, you're reacting. And when seconds matter, that makes all the difference. With the Stopbox Pro, you don't have to trade safety for speed or peace of mind for readiness. Your firearm stays secure, but always within reach. And I want to mention that all of Stopbox products are proudly made here in the USA in their own facility. So that creates great jobs for the American worker, but you don't have to worry about tariffs either. The Stopbox Pro is also TSA compliant. For a limited time, our listeners can get 15% off at Stopbox when you use the code Jarrett at checkout. Head on over to stopboxusa.com and use the code Jarrett for 15% off your entire order. After you purchase, they're going to ask you where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them we sent you. Jeff, I can't believe this is real, but like 33 years ago this week, major wrestling news happened in the WWF. And this isn't technically about you, but it kind of is. Bret Hart won the WWF World Title seemingly out of nowhere, beating Ric Flair in what was known as a dark match. It was actually earmarked at a television taping in the old Stampede Wrestling stomping grounds. But this happened on the Canadian Thanksgiving night, and it wound up being a Coliseum video exclusive. But normally, this is not the way title changes happened. You know, this sort of thing would have happened weeks in advance before it aired on TV, but they made sure to rush this announcement out on that week's TV, even if they weren't using footage from this show. Like the other matches, those were pre-taped. But this is a big deal, not just for Bret Hart, but I think it represents a bit of a paradigm shift for the WWF. It felt like for a long time, as long as Vince, quote unquote, Jr. had been running the company, it felt like it was the land of the giants. Here you are, though, in late 92, around this same time, you start flirting with the WWF. In fact, it was just a few months prior to Bret winning the world title where you're cutting a promo and challenging him when he's the Intercontinental Champion. But as a guy who is a third generation performer like yourself, and you see a guy like Bret Hart, who's a second generation, and he works a more modern style, he's lighter, he's more agile. It is the more modern style. It's no longer the more lumbering Hulk Hogan, Andre the Giant style. Did that represent a serious change to you? And was that motivational to you to get there fast?
Conrad, I don't think we've ever discussed this topic.
No.
You know what? When I read that this was going to be one of our notes, it took me back to Jerry Jarrett conversation. And this to the way you laid it out. Yeah. Look, hindsight's 2020, but for the time, I'm 22, 23-year-old man. It obviously didn't really register me, but man, oh man, did it register to my old man in a massive, monumental way. And he's the one who said, hey man, the big man era, the Hulk Hogan era, the muscled up, he put it in all kind of descriptors, just that the tide has turned, son, because when I broke in, you know, I'm barely 6 feet and 150 pounds and then 160 pounds, basketball and all this, as things rolled on, look, we would kind of have those not long conversations, but hey man, to get to the main event. Well, Lawler wasn't a big guy, and Dundee certainly wasn't a big guy, but from a territorial point of view, okay, yeah, I could, my size, I guess you could say, was going to be acceptable once I put on a few pounds. But as 89, 90, 91, remember the WCW conversations, to kind of get to a national level, my size was going to be, had the 80s stayed on track, is going to be an issue because nobody got really pushed in WWF. It was the, Warrior, who I'm not saying had height, but he was massive. And just kind of look at all the different guys that got all the big pushes. But for my father, and this is what he shared with me, and I remember him having a conversation with Lawler, myself, and maybe a few others, in that Vince has pivoted. He would never, ever, ever do, because that was Vince's go-to from day one, Hulkamania. And you just look at all the opponents. I mean, Orndorff was considered quasi small, but he was massive as far as muscles and all that kind of stuff. But Kamala and Boss Man and Earthquake and big guy after big guy after big guy. My dad really looked at this as a massive pivotal moment in that the Hogan era, as far as the big guy, it was over. And so he shared that with me, and he is the one who put the bug in me and like, okay. And he's like, son, Bret's the champion, and a wrestling champion at that. And he doesn't do over the top promos, and he does, my dad was realism, and he talks, not a promo style, a conversational style, and all those kind of things that we know what Bret is about. But my old man really looked at it as a paradigm shift in the industry, because even in, 92, 93, WCW, I mean, was a distant number two. They're not just their houses, but their presentation. That only changed when Nitro came along. But during this era, and WrestleMania is now 5, 6, 7-ish, 8-ish. So now they're 8 years into the big deals and SummerSlam and all that. But Conrad, it was a huge shift. Not only Bret's stature, his work style, his promo style, it was big in the Jarrett household. And for quite some time after this, just my dad would have these conversations. And I know my dad was talking to Vince during this time, like, okay, we can get into it. If the steroid era trial, how much did that pivot? What, why did we pivot? And I think Hogan doing Thunder in Paradise, whatever it may be, but it was a very definitive, the business has changed.
It really did feel like a major moment, and I don't think it gets enough discussion with the benefit of hindsight, because it did represent a shift to the more modern style.
So, and hindsight's 2020, but when you look at the Sheik as the champion and he beat Backlund, and when Hogan, took the title and went on, this was the next, that was obviously a massive title change. This title change, I think you have to put right in there as the next. This was maybe flagging the ground. We'll call it the new generation era, because Bret, it was a huge shift. Now I know they did things back and forth getting there, but this was a big change.
It is a big change. We should be clear too. It had to be encouraging that Ric Flair, obviously, he's one of the biggest names in the game. He wasn't necessarily a giant. Neither was Randy Savage. But those guys were respectfully on another level from the way Bret Hart had been positioned. So for them to take a chance on a tag team guy and an intercontinental guy and say, no, this is main event stuff, that felt like a vote of confidence that the WWE had not really rolled the dice on in a long time at that point. I mean, Hulk Hogan's obviously a megastar, and everybody that he flip-flopped the title with was a giant. And then there's Randy Savage. But again, he sort of carved out his own lane thanks to the rub from Hulk Hogan and the Mega Powers. And Ric Flair on the other channel was arguably the biggest non-WWE star. But when they go with Bret, man, it had to be so encouraging, not only to you, but a whole generation of wrestlers.
And I think Bret, and I was very aware of this after having conversations, in that I looked at Savage like I looked at, we'll just say, Hacksaw Jim Duggan, not work rate, Hacksaw, JYD. I'll call them, those guys arguably were in their prime, not Savage, but in the territory days. And so Vince, plucked all the territory guys and made them a boatload of money and put them on a national stage. But the Macho Man was the Macho Man in Memphis, and Duggan was Hacksaw and Watts, and JYD was JYD for Watts. And you could kind of go around, and Rick was, the Nature Boy in Charlotte, then WCW. But Bret, to me, was the first system guy that, yes, he was Bret Hart, we'll call him territory wrestler. And then Bret Hart as Jim Neidhart and Jimmy Hart and, the Neidhart tag team. But man, doing the shift of the first WWF champion that started, Bret's early days were, I can't say opening match guy, but very underneath, and he worked his way up. That to me was equally as important of not just his size, but working up through the ranks, which I thought was as big or bigger than anything Bret did.
Well, there you go. 33 years ago this week, the wrestling business changed forever. Bret Hart winning the world title from the Nature Boy, Ric Flair. Wrestling would never be the same. I don't think they ever go back to the old style. It really was a paradigm shift.
It was the shift. And, well, this isn't for this topic, but you kind of look at the Hogan era, we'll call it 82 to 92 ish, give or take. And then you really look at, the new generation. I think that the talent, because, Austin was there as $1 Million Man, and the talent was on the table. Shawn was there, all this, Nash became NWO. So the talent was there in the new generation. It's when the format changed. That's a whole nother topic. The format changed with Nitro and going live and head to head and not all that. But as far as talent on the table, the new generation to Attitude Era, lots of the same talent. This was the marking of, I can't say big guys were out, but the size of a Bret Hart being champion was in big.
Let me ask you, and I mean this respectfully, just want to give everybody the context here. June of 91 is when Zahorian goes on trial for steroid distribution. It would be 1994 when the trial with Vince McMahon would begin, but obviously we knew this was going to be a hot button issue. This is the era where we have Hulk Hogan go on Arsenio and things like that. 92 is where they tease Hogan's retirement at WrestleMania. They really do bid him farewell in 93. It feels like Vince is trying to run from the steroid issue. So I guess my question is, do you think that, necessity is the mother of invention? Like the only reason Vince pivoted is because he felt like he had to? Or do you felt like he thought, hey, I've got as much as I can out of the big guy thing? To me, as an outsider looking in, we've all heard about Vince's airport test and things like this. It almost feels like the steroid circumstance with Zahorian may have forced his hand in this direction.
You cannot deny it. I just think so, but I don't think there's any way that you can give it all, 100%. I think it's a blend of everything, because I got there in 93, but I'd heard stories about, look, Shawn came in and, not just the Rockers, and then Shawn's singles was early 90s. There were talent, and look, you kind of get in and the pieces of the puzzle, you have to really know your, I don't want to say political history, let's say your personality history. And I'm sure Brother Love has firsthand, experience in all this. But when you inject Pat Patterson in the number 2 role from George Scott or Bruce or whoever it may be, but Pat being a former in-ring performer that can speak with authority, who's drawn a boatload of money, his creativity is unbelievable. I think you have to give Pat, and Bret, I think, would speak to this. And there's others, obviously Shawn, there's several others, but I think the 1-2 kind of punch of, hypothetically, Vince is going, oh my God, we've got to get away from the red flashing light walking down the aisle every time that, guys that are just massively big. How do we do that? If Pat isn't there to say, hey man, I'm a former talent, I know they've got charisma, we're out on the house shows, we hear the responses, we read the agents' reports, we get the feedback. That's another thing that just kind of the system that Vince set himself up into. And I was talking to somebody the other day about, boy, oh boy, how times have changed. But it used to be in the old days, the agents would get done with the live events, the house shows, if you will, go to a phone, obviously no cell phones, go to a phone and dictate, call in match by match and any other notes and anything important, obviously the gross house and all that kind of stuff. But they would dictate the match on who got a good response, who didn't get a good response, why they got a response, all that's opinion. But then there was a stenographer come in and transcribe it, and I think that's the right word, whatever, transcribe the report, and then Vince would walk into the office the next morning and read last night's results. And so there's his focus group. That's why it's invaluable. So, but Conrad, I think the steroids, the reports, the talent of, I mean, you could go down the list of during this era of, the highlights I mentioned too, Shawn and Bret, that, okay, here's where I'm going to, and as a promoter, Vince, the vision said, this is where I'm going and this is how I'm going to get there.
Well, let's talk about what happened this past weekend, Jeff. Bound for Glory. It looks like TNA had a successful event over the weekend. We are going to be talking about the very first Bound for Glory next week here on the program. It went down on October 23rd, 2005. So next week will be as close as we can get to the 20-year anniversary. So we are going to talk about the 05 show, but over the weekend, it looks like TNA actually set their all-time attendance record, which is high fives all around for them. When you see news like that, your baby is still alive and kicking, and it celebrated its largest attendance yet, how does that strike you?
Well, you know what? It's I don't say this because it's just my baby. That's super biased, I guess you could say. But the industry, when you have another promotion being successful, that's good for everyone involved. And how long ago did they change it back to TNA?
Couple years.
But 2 years by now, right? I think around 2 years. I think about, look, history will, and there's always going to be ups and downs, no matter what promotion, no matter what creative, no matter what talent it is, what it is. But the TNA years versus the Impact Wrestling versus whatever it may be, it feels like the rebranding, and look, there's a lot goes with it. I'm not the WWE relationship has added multiples or zeros or whatever it may be when they're on a national television platform the 4 days or whatever that be, 4 or 5 days before. That obviously is a huge help, but it's great, I think, for the industry across the board. And man, oh man, every time I hear a pay-per-view name, a Genesis, a Sacrifice, a Bound for Glory, a Slammiversary, it always does take me back to different creative rooms. And hey, guys, quit jacking around. We got to get to it. But Bound for Glory was always the biggest one of the year. And so you would know, hopefully 3, 4, 5, 6 months out and work backwards, sometimes a little more than that. So, yeah, man, hats off. Congrats to everyone involved. I saw one of the promo packages and the ID shoots of Team 3D. I still call them that, but takes me back to those days. But Bound for Glory, what was this weekend? Was this 22, 23?
This was their 21st Bound for Glory.
21st.
But it's the 20-year anniversary, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
I do want to ask you, it seems like there's a little bit of confusion between TNA fans. In your opinion, what was the TNA WrestleMania? Is it Slammiversary or is it Bound for Glory? I always thought it was Bound for Glory, but a lot of people I talk to act like it's Slammiversary. These were your babies. What was it originally?
Oh, for sure. Originally Bound for Glory. Slammiversary was the anniversary show, and more so the time of year than anything. You don't put your biggest show of the year in late June or early July. Some years it had to fall in July, I think, not many, but June, that is not the best month out of the year to run an event a la Great American Bash or SummerSlam or whatever it may be. But we always looked at Bound for Glory is the biggest one. That was in the fall by design. Halloween Havoc was the biggest for WCW by design. It was in the fall. Mania's in the spring, but we did Bound for Glory 1, Lockdown 2, and Slammiversary 3. And then the other 9 were, you could fluctuate.
Wait. Okay. That's interesting. So in your mind, Lockdown was the second biggest event, your other tent pole. So number 1 is Bound for Glory, then Lockdown, and then Slammiversary.
And by design, we wanted Lockdown, quote unquote. I always tried to have it. Dude, was this me and you, Conrad, over the last week or 2 or 3 weeks about innovation in the industry? And I've always, and I think this is drilled into me from my old man, and I'm a reader on different folks, that, you know, if you just do what you've always done, you have to be, and, you know, Vince was always, don't get too far ahead of the curve. So there is a happy medium. I get that, but the innovation, but we always looked at, okay, how are we going to counter program Mania? Glitz and glamour and presentation and a stage that's bigger than bigger than the ring, and they're going to load it up with stars and celebrities. We went the other way, an all steel cage format that essentially sold violence. So we went, you know, what's the alternative to Mania in our world? That's how we went with it.
And you mentioned, you know, spring and fall and all that. So it was by design that it's about 6 months out from WrestleMania. Did you plan that based on international fans and everybody trying to travel, like just trying to be cost conscious of fans?
If you really look, and, you know, you have to get into the DNA of Vince McMahon, the television season, this is dating because now it's completely changed, and streaming, and hell, Raw's on at 7 a.m. at my house. So the world has changed. But if you go back to the 80s and look at how ratings used to be done and television was done, all the premieres were essentially in late September. We'll call it September, October. You took your first ratings book of the season in November, then you'd be February, then May. Well, there's a reason why that's at, because you got 3 of the most important months of the TV viewing season: start, middle, and end. And so Vince got through the holidays, and then he kicked up, because that's when it's the winter. And so, you know, east of the Mississippi, what is it? 70% of the United States population. I'm going to be off, but a big part of the population, they're inside. It's winter, the viewing habits, daylight savings time, all that. So Vince kicked off, and Royal Rumble was made as a counter programming, but it fit in January. But Mania is the season that he always built toward. And then he really finished his season. Back in the day, that's when he let talent go, did guys on overseas trips and all that. So the essentially, we'll call it from mid-January to mid-April, is when we'll say the WWF back in the day was firing on all cylinders and doing as much as they possibly could. They pulled off the gas in the fall by design. And that, I believe, is where Halloween Havoc became to such precedence, and a little bit of a counter programming. And that's where WCW had massive success during that time in their heyday. And when we came in and having discussions with pay-per-view network or pay-per-view, the distributors, all that, they were like, hey, because let me go back, pay-per-view industry is going to promote the events that make the most money. That's why back in the day, if Tyson was fighting, even within a 3-week window, forget about it. They're going to promote Tyson because it's the biggest ROI. And so, you know, to get the most promotion, and that is, you know, what the industry, you go back 80s and 90s, it wasn't this big rights deal that now premium live events has turned into. So the pay-per-view industry, where can we get the most promotion? The fall. You're not going to get it in the spring. So the fall was a big thing. And so when we came in, obviously WCW went away. The in-demand, direct, dish, it was almost as if, wait a minute, you don't even know. No, we knew, like, you know, shout out Jay Hassman. Hope that boy's doing all right. But anyway, you talk to Mike Weber, Jay Hassman, any pay-per-view marketer through the years traditionally absolutely knows that, okay, you're going to get the most bang for your buck. So that's where we, you know, Bound for Glory was going to get the most promotional punch from everyone. And we were getting out of the way. So does that make sense?
It makes total sense. I do want to ask you about the thinking behind the Big Show. Like, we know that WCW did it, and before that, the NWA and Dusty Rhodes did it with Jim Crockett Promotions, and obviously Vince did it with WrestleMania and SummerSlam and all this sort of thing. Your dad didn't really do the Big Show. A lot of other territories, they would build towards Thanksgiving night, and that was the big annual show. And, well, your dad just sort of said, hey, I just want to focus on the weekly towns. And I guess he thought, if I position one show as more important than the others, then maybe they'll start skipping the weeklies. And so then the Big Show becomes the one you can't miss, and they kill the weekly. Or what was the thinking, and how did your dad, did he ever come around to the TNA method of, we're going to have a big show, this is the new way? Talk to me about that.
During the territory days, his mindset was, and how he was very particular about this. And you got to look how long, it's the longest surviving territory out of all 22, kind of by far as profitability. And I think there's a method to his madness in that his mindset was obviously 52 weeks a year. And so May and September, kids getting out of school and into school. If they're getting out of school, vacations, there's a lot of money being spent on weddings and graduations. And he was very, very, because the socioeconomic area that we were in, it was, you didn't have a ton of money flying around. So he would do a kids free or lower prices, or do that type of mentality to be very conscientious of how to keep his shows making the most profit. But when he would build to a big show, his mindset was, I'm going to raise prices $1 or $2 back in those days for a world title match. But he, and they used to chuckle at Nick Goulas, the old promoter around here, because every week, but Lance would do it on his own. Lance Russell would do it with his own style, but essentially saying, this is the biggest card ever signed. Nick Goulas would flat out just say, folks, this Saturday night, Nashville Sports Arena, the biggest card I've ever signed. He would literally say that every week. So it's a little oversell, but Lance had a way of subtly, he was freaking great at it, but making you feel that this is a once in a lifetime opportunity to come down to the Gardens on Tuesday or Coliseum on Monday, whatever it may be. So that was his mindset. He understood. So as we got into the TNA era, oh man, he wasn't going to argue with Success and Mania, because it was a different kettle of fish, because you're not talking about live event ticketing. Now you're talking about marketing and pay-per-view. And, he would always, he had a lot of music friends. Bobby Bear was a neighbor, and he had all kinds of music friends. And those guys were always in amazement going, now, wait a minute. Even Elvis Presley can't come back to the Mid-South Coliseum 52 weeks in a row. About week 4, people go, Elvis, you're great, but we saw your hits last week. So the music business, to this day, I think they're somewhat amazed at the amount of dates that wrestling and all that, but the pay-per-view and the big money influxed in just makes our industry unique. And my old man knew that we had to pivot. So that wasn't, he understood. And, if me and him sat down over the last 3 or 4 or 5 years before we were passing, I would tell him just the different conversations, Conrad, me and you have, in that we filled, as we, TNA, went to a monthly pay-per-view because that's what WWE was doing. And we knew that our fixed cost, we didn't have to do 100,000 buys or 200,000 buys every month. It didn't. The only thing we paid extra on pay-per-views during that run was talent and travel. And that wasn't even that much, because sometimes travel, we bundled that with TV tapings. So it wasn't, but it's when we went on the road and took it on the road. And that's when those were the bad decisions. And that's not for here, but yeah, he understood the big show concept as time moved on. And not just supportive of it. He completely understood it.
Well, something that we understand is it's time to enjoy a good night out, but maybe you're not always in the mood to drink. Well, luckily I found a great alternative. Soul's Out of Office Gummies. They give me that same light, happy buzz without the hangover, the sugar, or the awkward next morning. After a long day, I used to pour a big glass of Tito's to relax, but I've been rocking with Soul's Out of Office Gummies and drinks instead. They help me unwind and ease into my evening without alcohol or next day fog. You see, Soul is a wellness brand that believes feeling good should be fun and easy. Soul specializes in delicious hemp-derived THC and CBD products designed to boost your mood and help you unwind. Their best-selling out-of-office gummies were designed to provide that mild, relaxing buzz, boost your mood, and enhance your creativity and even your relaxation. They've got 5 different strengths, so you can tailor the dose to fit your vibe. They've got the 1.5 milligram micro dose. That's what Megan rocks. And the newest 15 milligram gummy for a more elevated experience. That's what I'm hanging out with the boys down at the beach. And if you like the out of office gummies, you got to try the out of office beverage. It's a refreshing alcohol free alternative that's perfect for winding down on the couch or socializing with friends. What I love about Soul is they've got a variety of products designed for whatever you're looking for. Maybe you want help getting a better night's rest. Sign me up. Maybe you want to go ahead and focus on creativity or relaxation. I'm a big fan of their top selling sleepy gummies. My wife is in love with these. They're a fan favorite for deep restorative sleep. She took one last night. She slept over 8 hours. First time in weeks she's done that. And with wellness at the forefront, you can finally feel good about what you're putting in your body. You see, all of Soul's products are made from organically farmed, USA grown hemp. They're all vegan, gluten-free, low in sugar, and yes, federally legal. Bring on the good vibes and treat yourself to Soul today. Right now, Soul is offering our audience 30% off your entire order. Go right now to getsoul.com and use the code MyWorld. That's GetSoul. That's GetSoul.com, getsoul.com, and use the promo code MyWorld. You'll get 30% off. Hey, out of office gummies, man.
Woo!
Hard to beat. I love them. I love them.
As your father-in-law would say.
Something, you know what? I think if he were here in spirit, he might hit us with woo. Hey, I do want to ask you about Bound for Glory. As we are recording this, it was last night. It's the biggest TNA show in history, but what everybody's talking about are 2 big things coming out of that. Number one, they've got a new world champion, Mike Santana, a guy that we've all been familiar with. It feels like he was maybe a TNA original. I mean, he was there for a long, long time. We saw him in AEW, and now he's trying his hand at a singles run. And what an incredible night. He wins the world title. A lot of people felt like they should have pulled the trigger a few months ago. They waited till their equivalent of WrestleMania. And what an emotional scene, seeing him grab that belt and then grab his child. Man, this is like as good of a story as it gets in wrestling. It's just a feel good moment. I think if you followed his story, I know you got to know him a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about Santana to start the show.
Where do I start? In 2017, when I went back, Conrad, and I heard K-Dog went out with him last night, or just escorted him to the ring, which I think is really, really cool because, and we've covered this, no need to get into too many details, but when I went back to Anthem, Global Force, Impact, the however you want to say it, that promotion, when I went back 2017, things happened so quick, the January tapings, and then we had the March tapings. And I knew that I wanted LAX, and we're going to put a new group together and all that kind of, and Conrad, those tapings, and it was a challenging, I forget how many we did. I think we did 4 days worth of taping, 3 or 4 days worth of taping. So a lot of shows and a lot of moving parts. And so I know that, I'll never forget just this little 15-second kind of deal. LAX has an in-ring, and in my mind, here's the bullet points. There was so much going on. He's going to hit these, and Conan, you don't have to just say, hey man, here's what we're going to get done. However it went down, I'm watching the monitor, and Santana grabs the mic. He's a part of it, and him and Conan, whatever, they talked it through, and Mike started laying down this promo, and I remember talking to JB like, holy fuck, this dude can talk. He's got charisma. So from that day forward, great worker, and they had the vibe and the LAX, and it's very, very hard to create a tag team. And, through the years, LAX was a mainstay and a go-to, and due to Conan's Mike skills and his aura, he was, no matter who it was, Homicide, Hernandez, through the years, it was K-Dog's group, period. But when I saw those guys on camera and their work and their efforts and their just kind of their whole vibe, I instantly became a fan of that guy. And I knew I knew he was going places, no doubt. And then when I saw him in AEW in the early days, it didn't surprise me at all. I'm saying this guy is a mega talented, mega charisma. He's had a challenging walk through the years, and we've stayed in contact, and we'll send each other messages. So from a personal level, I could not be more proud of the guy that P word that is at the top of anybody's success list. He has persevered. So hats off to that. I'll call him young man. He deserves it. And if he was standing in front of me, I'd shake his hand, give him a big hug, and say, "All right, pal, now the hard work starts."
What's interesting too is it wasn't that long ago that he sort of bet on himself and he left AEW and went to TNA. And after being such a successful part of a tag team for so long, a fan favorite tag team, like fans loved LAX, I think a lot of people felt like it was a risk and maybe he was making a mistake. I love when guys bet on themselves and it works out like this, Jeff.
There is so much to that. God, we've talked about old Jerry Jarrett quite a bit. He always would harp on, I'll call it the most successful wrestlers are the ones that can incentivize themselves. And whether it be whatever that internal marker are. And so, fame or fortune, I tell guys at seminars or have conversations, if you're doing it just for fame or fortune, you're not really going to last because it's hard, grinding work, lots of bumps, lots of travel, a lot of things you miss from home, all that kind of stuff. And fame and fortune doesn't really replace that no matter what. So you got to have a passion for it. And I think at the end of the day, Santana has an incredible passion and drive. He obviously his daughter is right up there at number one, but I think in his very core, by the grace of God, Mike wants to get up every day and be a better version of himself. And I think that's what internally drives him.
Well, we're pulling for him. Big Santana fans here on My World. Can't wait to see what's next for him. But I do want Silva, our crack producer, not that he's on crack. He'd look a little different if he was.
Okay.
There was a tweet that came out from TNA about this, and I wanted to just show it to you. I don't know if you saw this, but TNA actually posted this tweet that it's a wonderful photo of Santana.
Mm-hmm.
And it says Angle, Sting, Joe, Foley, Styles, RVD, Hardy, Anderson, Storm, Rude, Aries, Bully Ray, Sabin, Magnus, Young, Lashley, EC3, Hardy, Galloway, Edwards, Patron, Drake, Pentagon, Impact, Cage, Callahan, Blanchard, Swan, Omega, Christian, Alexander, Cage, Moose, Macklin, Shelley, Nemeth, Hendry, Trick, Mike Santana. Now, when I took a look at this, I said to myself, isn't there a name missing?
No.
Where the fuck is Jeff Jarrett's name?
I'm not. I'm not on that list.
Why are you not listed?
You know the answer to this.
No, I don't. Show it again. Let's look at the tweet again, because we've got Tessa Blanchard, and there's certain corners of the IWC. They say, "Oh, she's canceled." Rich Swann. Other people say the same thing about. I mean, Aries. There's YouTube videos popping up today dumping on Aries. People have trolled EC3. I mean, Patron. People are clamoring, saying, "Oh, you can't bring him back to WWE." So it's not like there's not spots in here that some people may deem controversial. And we're shouting out guys who work for other promotions here, including Kenny Omega and Christian. Where the fuck is Jeff Jarrett's name, Jeff?
Well, then help me out on this history. Rich Swann was a TNA World Heavyweight Champion, right?
Yes.
And Silva, if you don't mind, throw it up there one more time. I want to make sure you were thinking some name. Was Bully Ray a champion? I think at one time.
Yeah. He was.
He was.
So these are all former world heavyweight champions for TNA, but you're not on the list. I don't understand how you're not listed here.
I wasn't a TNA champion. Was Tessa a TNA champion?
Well, they were Impact champions.
Yeah. Okay. But I would. Okay. But I was never, I mean, I guess if they did that, then hats off to them if they're going to be that petty. But that's okay. Good
Did
Lord.
you notice that before I pointed it out?
No, well, I just assumed it's because people get into that conversation. Jarrett was never a TNA champion. Thank God I wasn't. Trust me. I always rag on. No, when Kurt came in, I was out of that picture, and gladly so.
Well, listen, you saying "thank God I wasn't" is going to be viewed amongst TNA faithful as you slighting them, and that's not it. You're actually responding to the criticisms that, oh, it was only created in the first place to make Jeff a champion. That sort of narrative, right?
Yeah, that whole narrative is about as insane as Conrad. Karen says it funny sometimes too, but yeah, I always answer with, so I'm gonna spend my own money, and yeah, Conrad, the logic of that is so flawed.
Yes, it's silly, it's dumb. I felt like it was a huge oversight to not include your name there.
Well, let's see, Carlos.
Well, that's where I was getting to. Is I know you had once upon a time. I don't think it's a secret. There were some personality conflicts between you and Ed, but Ed's no longer there.
Oh no, that's gone.
Well, that's the thing. Like even you and Scott D'Amore, who people perceive you guys hate each other, that's not real at all. You guys got together a few years ago at Top Guy Weekend. Go ahead, Jeff. I'm sorry.
Sorry about that. Yeah, he was in Jacksonville that was just last week. We had a good old chat, and we actually brought up Ed and Scott. I'll just say this: I won't get too inside because this is kind of personal knowledge, but I mean, there is zero heat between me and Ed Nordum. And Scott said this, Jeff, I think you were Ed's first friend in the wrestling business. I told Karen that, and Karen just kind of looked at me and I said, that came out of, I'll call it the horse's mouth. So yeah, there's no heat there. But maybe there is with, I don't know.
With who? I mean, who would it be with now? Who could you possibly have heat with there?
Dreamer, Delirious, Carla. I mean, Carlos, I had conversations with him not long ago about a whole nother thing, but I don't know.
Heat with Dreamer? That seems make believe.
I don't know. I don't know the personalities involved there now, but it is interesting, isn't it, Conrad? That
it just feels like it's, we're listing all these other people that. Listen, I get that, in the cancel culture we're in the modern era, some people want to avoid controversy at all costs. I get that, but you're not controversial. There are controversial names on that list, and by the way, I'm not saying they're controversial to me, but I'm just saying, like, I know other people would say, oh, you can't promote so-and-so. Nobody's going to say that about you. Where does that come from, Jeff?
So let me ask you, you're saying it's by design they left me off.
You think they accidentally forgot the motherfucking founder on the biggest show of the year on the 20-year anniversary? There's no way they accidentally let it slip their mind.
So I guess are they, well, the Tessa Blanchard thing, because now they're involving females. That's interesting. And you said it, I didn't look at it this way. So there's Impact champions, there's TNA champions. If there's an Impact champion, why isn't there an NWA champion? That's interesting.
It doesn't make any sense. Because, by the way, we have an affiliate program with TNA here on the show. We're fans of TNA. We're bragging about their show here. And I was just like, this feels like a glaring omission to me. And it felt personal, but you don't take it that way.
But after everything I've been through with that place, I feel so at peace when to this day, I think I know that brand better than anybody there today.
Well, let's take a little more time and talk about that incredible show they had. Well, I mean, I'm being sincere. I think it's so awesome that TNA has all of this momentum. I know that there are a lot of critics out there of the WWE partnership. I think the proof is in the pudding. The shows are being critically well received. They're being attended well. I mean, there was an attendance record. They're claiming nearly 7,800 people. I say claiming because that's the phrase that Sean Rossap said. Who cares? But what I was really most excited about was the tag match. One Final Table is what it was called. The last match between the Hardys and the Dudleys. And I know technically they did this 11 years ago and said that was their last match, but this time I think they mean it. There have been some health issues that I think dictate that this may become the last Dudley's match. I don't know it's the last Bully Ray match necessarily, but I think that Devon's probably going to call it a career. Is that the way you read this or feel about this?
You know, our number one correspondent on this show for me and you, Conrad, or certainly for me, Cody, they took the boots off in the ring, right?
And handed them to the Hardys. It was an emotional thing.
Yeah.
And even Bully tweeted, you know, the end, and arm in arm with Devon as they walk through the back curtain. What a photo, what a shot. I think everybody knows these two teams were synonymous with each other. I used to troll all of my non-ECW fan friends, and I would ask them, "Hey, who's the best tag team of all time, and why is it the Dudley Boyz?" I love them as a main event act, and I think that they really probably don't get enough credit. And I know they've won all these tag titles, but I feel like the modern fan sort of dismisses their accomplishments. But when they first came to TNA, Jeff, that was a big deal for TNA, was it not?
I'll never ever forget meeting them at the TGI Fridays across the street from the DoubleTree in Orlando. And Frank Dickerson, the executive out of Panda, had zero clue. This is one of his first kind of big talent meetings, and I was doing my best. And man, Conrad, it takes me back to those days that talent. I'm a talent. I'm running creative, wearing all the different hats. But when you got an executive from Panda, we got to meet these talent. Yes, I want them on board. It's going to be a budget issue, but I think Bubba and Devon kind of understand where we're at, where we're going, and what we want to do, and all this. But yeah, hell yeah, I knew. And Cody showed me several clips because we had the lake day and all this, but he showed me several clips, and it got me really to thinking about how just life works out, Conrad, that these four had their last match in a TNA ring. And when I look at my bud Nero, we exchanged texts this morning, not about wrestling, about life. But, you know, he was at one of our first shows, 2002 and 2003, and now here it is in 2020. He's been with the brand off and on. I get that, for over 20 years. And Matt, you know, he came, whatever, 2010, 11, you know, he's been with the brand off and on. But when I look at Bubba and Devon, 05, you know, came on board, the ID shoots, Bubba.
By the way, that's right after One Night Stand, where the ECW nostalgia was at an all-time high. So that happened in June of 05. So when they come in for you a few months later, it feels like, man, they are on the radar more than they had been in a while.
And I say this, Devon's great. Bubba's ability to connect, and I'm going to say this, not just with an audience, live events, all this, but like when you have a skill set of understanding the impact zone, 1,000, however it may be, give or take, whatever it may be, and knowing that hard camera, but you're working to a hard camera, like Bubba's really, really good at understanding, conveying messages, and being I'll call it, the simple term is polished, that you're putting out a TV product, but if you don't, to create a good TV product, you got to have the fans engaged and just all the different things. They were very instrumental. What you just 05, because you really look at 05 to 09, most profitable years by far. And they were right in the middle of it. So that's why I've just got a ton of respect for those guys. But how life happens, those four have their final match in a TNA ring at Bound for Glory. It's pretty, life just works out exactly, no matter how much we want to slice and dice and pull and plug and chess piece and play checkers one day and chess the next and Jenga, whatever it may be. Life's going to happen exactly the way it's supposed to happen. And those guys in that ring, Devon, you know, they started a school down in Orlando. Just, there's so many connections to that brand. Taking the boots off, it was cool. I mean, Codes really thought it was pretty cool. I think that really kind of digested to him, and he's a great focus group into the story and all that. So, you just have to kind of look at that. I'm glad Santana won the belt, but if you think that those guys, people paid to see history last night, and I don't know any better way to say it is they paid to see history and to be a part of history. And you just think in our industry that, sports, you have playoffs and all that, but you don't have the opportunity. Once Jordan was done, yeah, he came back and played a couple of seasons, but you can't really live that glory again and go for the titles and all that kind of stuff. Music certainly doesn't work out that way. You kind of go on a retirement too, but those guys got to pull out, and the announcers, I think it was Tom. Yeah, that was the voice I heard on one of the bites. Really, a really good sound bite. It just kind of gave closure to a wrestling fan who has gone on that journey. It so connects emotionally. It is what makes our business like none other. I think that is a part of why I love it today more than I ever have, because the ability that we have to connect to audiences. And last night they got the opportunity. I hope those four guys shook the powers that be last night, because, man, what an opportunity that was given to them, and they delivered.
I don't know when we'll talk about them again, so I want to ask now, when you're getting the Dudley Boyz and you find out, or they find out, hey, technically, since WWE bought the ECWIP, we can't call ourselves the Dudley Boyz. How did you land on Brother Ray and Brother Devon? Was there any other discussion that you recall about a different name, maybe?
How much dealings have you done with Bubba? Your fair share, right?
Yeah. I like Bubba. I know that he's a controversial figure in wrestling, but in real life, I like Bubba. I like Bubba a lot.
No, but what I'm saying is, he's a salesman.
Yes.
Like it was, and like, if they sold it to me, hey, I walked away with it. If they've got a solution, I was never hung up on that. And the biggest reason why is Bubba. Yes, but Devon would sit here and shake his head. We've had more fun through the years, all of us. But Bubba's not just promo skills, conviction that it like the 3D was his move, Team 3D. Like, it was a no-brainer. This is the transition. We're going to move right on through it. And it just worked. They had it together in the very first meeting. Here's how we're going to do this. Got it. Let's roll.
I want to ask you about the way they came in versus the way a lot of other former WWE talent came in. Respectfully, as a fan, I'm watching from home, and I would see various WWE talent come in, and I would feel like, as a fan, it felt like they're not taking this seriously. They feel like this is a downgrade. It's not WWE. So they're just going to sort of half-ass it. I won't name names, but we can probably land on the same ones. I never got that impression with the Dudleys. It's like the Dudleys came in and it felt like ECW and WWE all over again. Did you feel the same way as the guy who was there? Did you feel like they were coming in with the right attitude, for lack of a better word?
If you look at the debuts in 2010 and 2011, I cringed at almost all of them, including Flair, including Hogan. Look, I know we've celebrated Hulk, but I've said it a couple of times. His creative vision just wasn't there, and I think Eric would a lot of times went with Hulk, and Dixie didn't have a clue. But man, I think of RVD. I think of Matt. I think there's several that I just, man, whoa, what are we doing? But like the Kurt Angle debut, because Kurt obviously had a lot of drive in him. He wanted so bad to come in and succeed, and just kind of that, it's real, it's damn real, and that deal. And then when he got to work, he came to work, all that. But so go back before that, what you just said, those guys came to the original meeting and were ready to go to work. And here's the team, and here's this, and here's that, and here's the, like, super engaged. And so at the end of the day, that is one thing I can safely say. Downstairs, when we were going through creative all those different years, or whether we'd be in Nashville in a creative room or Orlando, when you see Team 3D, Team 3D's name on the board in the slot, lack of effort never entered into anybody's mind in the room, and lack of suggestions or collaborations. Bubba and Devon were coming with it. Without it, right up there at the very top of my list. You never, almost sometimes too much. I've had conversations with Bubba on show day and say, today's production day. Today's not creative. We've already decided creative. Now we're going to do production. And what are we going to do in production? We're going to produce what's already laid out. But dude, he always came. And I think that is a huge part of the success, not just in the TNA years, but the success of those two guys through the years, is that, look, you don't become champs in Japan and WWE and TNA and wherever you went if you're lazy. That's the furthest thing from their mindset. They're very hard workers, and I'm proud to have experienced what I did with them through the years at TNA, no doubt.
Where do you think the Dudleys, what do you think their legacy will be as a tag team? Again, we haven't heard from Bully. I don't know. I'm of the impression that he's still going to have some more matches. I don't know that to be sure, but it does feel like this Dudley's era has come to a close. So if that really was it, and that's the last time we'll see the Dudleys as a tag team, what do you think their legacy will be, Jeff?
That's a good question. Boy, you asked me this today because I'm going down one road. You asked me tomorrow, maybe a different answer. But more than anything, I'm going to say this with as much gold, glitter, and flake and respect and everything. Mileage. Man, you think about their run, and when you get into a program with Devon and Bubba, it's you could easily, because we used to kind of build them in arcs of 3 months, but they could work with anybody. Like, you can have a brawl, you can have a wrestling match, you can have showbiz match, you can have a little comedy. Nothing those guys couldn't do. And I know it's easy to say most decorated and this and that, but I'm talking about as industry folks. They were pro, and when I say that, one of the mandate for me from Jerry Lawler and Jerry Jarrett, learn to work with everybody, and those guys could.
What's interesting is when you think about the great tag teams, at least through WWE, Edge and Christian were together 3 years. The New Age Outlaws were together 4 years. In the WWE, the Legion of Doom were together 4 years. Demolition were together 4 years. APA 5 years. The Hart Foundation 6 years. The Dudley Boyz just in WWE 7 years. That's not counting what happened before or after. I mean, it really is kind of rare air. I mean, you'd have to look at like the more modern era, like New Day, Usos, and their opponent, the Hardy Boys, as far as the longest continuous run in WWE. I think they got to be on the short list of all-time great tag teams. And I know that there's a lot of people out there who prefer, the Rock and Roll Express or the Midnight Express or Arn and Tully or FTR or the Young Bucks. And there's so many great tag teams that are out there. We could name them all. But when you think about longevity, like you said, between ECW, between the WWE, between TNA, and literally everywhere else, they got to be in the conversation. They have to be.
This may not be just because I know Bubba. Well, he may frown upon this, maybe not. When he became a single in TNA, I was not a fan. Not personal, but I'm like, I don't think this serves the product best. I just think they are a super solid box office attraction. Sure, Bubba can have a single match. Sure, Devon can have a single match, but it was never 1 + 1 = 2 with those two guys. Never. That's my opinion. That's my.
Well, and listen, I know that I hear what you're saying. He may not be a fan of that and thinking necessarily, but at the same time, look at the Road Warriors. I think we all recognize and appreciate that Hawk could have been an incredible single. Like if there was never an Animal and they were never presented as the Road Warriors, if it was just him with the face paint and the shoulder pads, you got to think he would have main evented multiple Starcades and I mean, just been a totally different career trajectory. But I think once we saw him as an act, we kind of wanted to see both of the Road Warriors. We want to see them together. I think that's the same thing for the Dudley Boyz, don't you?
I agree. And look, Ricky and Robert, Ricky did that little singles run with Flair and all that. But there is something about a team that comes on the scene and gets over that you just can't kill those memories, and you don't want to kill those memories, and you want to see. It's like in music, man. It's we could pick out a lead singer. David Lee Roth in a single career. Look, I'm aging myself. I'm not sure, but you could pull out a lead singer of many a group, and they just never follow up with the same success. That's just, I think, the human nature. I think human nature has the most to do with that.
Hey, let's talk about the Hardys here for a minute. I know that we're really celebrating the Dudleys because they lost the match, but we've mentioned also that fans who showed up for this event, Bound for Glory, they were there to see history, and a lot of them were there to see specifically the Hardy Boys. It doesn't matter what independent show you put them on anywhere in the country, they will be a major draw, not just in the Carolinas, but certainly in the Carolinas. But hell, they were selling out in New York this past weekend for Amazing Red. I'm sure they're going to sell out every other show they go to. Like, if you want to draw thousands of dollars to your P&L, bring in the Hardys, let them do a meet and greet, and fans are going to line up. What is it about their presentation that you think so much of the modern fan gravitates to? Because if you really take a look at their peak, respectfully, they're well past their WWF peak as an act, but there's still that emotional connection with the fans that I don't think a lot of people in wrestling, tag team or not, have. The Hardys have seemingly set the hook, and it's not going anywhere. Those fans are with them for life. Why do you think that is, Jeff?
I don't think there's any one particular reason. I mean, Matt has engaged going back years socially, on a real granular level.
One of the first ones to do so too.
Yeah. So, I mean, so you can, that's what I'm saying. You could go down kind of a multiple of that. I think at the very core, the Hardys grew up in front of modern wrestling fans' eyes. They broke out in that, ironically, in that Cleveland pay-per-view in 1999, we'll say. And the Hardy name has never left. It's their biological God-given name. So when Jeff came to TNA, he was Jeff Hardy. I do think there's not just a little bit to this, but a massive amount to this. Hardy named himself the charismatic enigma. I don't think you can quantify or write down or truly explain Jeff's charisma, in that at the end of the day, if you put him in front of 10 wrestling fans and put, I don't know, Cody Rhodes and MJF and maybe a few others in there, where would you rank Jeff on promos? He's going to be definitely not at the top of the list. Okay, what about his in-ring work? He does some high-flying stunts and stuff like that. Well, no, let's talk about, so he wouldn't be at the very top of that. So does Jeff do everything good? Yeah. Does he do anything great? Look, I love him like a brother. Family Vacations. But I say, and I've told him this to his face, there is a unique ability that he has to connect with the fans, and not to get too out of whack here and think Jeff's lost his as in Jeff Jarrett's lost his freaking mind. There's something about Jeff Hardy's soul that connects with folks because it's indescribable. He has, Lord knows, he'll tell you this, he's had his ups and lots of downs and battled demons, and praise God, he's rocking and rolling these days. And we are brothers in arms in many ways, that being specifically one of them. But Conrad, I don't think, and I'd love to if you could describe it, but there's a lot of things that go with it, and it just round and round. But I don't think you can explain the charisma of Jeff. And so when you put Jeff and Matt together as a unit, I just think you've got box office. You can't kill a memory, and they connect, and they're kid fans. They had tons of little girls and little boys 20 years ago, and now that generation has kids, and they're connecting. And so I just think it's my old man used to talk about Fargo, how he connected, and he was a hell of a talker. Wasn't the greatest worker, a lot of showbiz in him, but he just connected on a different level that even in his late 60s, Conrad put him on a card. He didn't want to work in this territory, and he might not sell out, but he would jump exponentially more than the week before. And that was off his charisma, because it wasn't any match or nothing. Hey, we're announcing his name and people know he connects.
That connection has lasted forever. And speaking of lasting for a long time,
by the following. Promotional consideration paid for by the following.
Mando is here, and I got to tell you, I'm such a big fan of this product. It feels like it lasts forever. It falls here, guys. Football, yard work, maybe some hunting trips. Let's be honest, though, with these longer days and spend a little more time outdoors or hanging with the boys, staying fresh can be a challenge. And that's why you need to hear about Mando deodorant. From your pits to, well, everything else, Mando high performance odor control and sweat control actually lasts all damn day long. So forget those colognes that just mask the stink. Mando actually blocks odor before it even starts. It's one stick that does two jobs. That's coverage through double overtime games, that weekend project, and even those extra long pre-holiday shifts. You're good. It's not magic. It's science. I'm bragging specifically about the clinical strength sweat control. One swipe and you're good to go. It's not your typical deodorant. It controls both sweat and odor for 72 hours. And after 12 hours, your underarm sweat will be reduced by 92%. You see, Mando is deodorant that's been re-engineered to stop odor before it even starts. It doesn't just mask odor, it prevents it. 100% of the study participants experienced all-day odor protection. And a lot of that is because, unlike other deodorants that are loaded with chemicals, Mando only uses premium ingredients like gentle mandelic acid to keep you fresh and dry. It's also double protection. You see, Mando's new deodorant plus sweat control solid stick gives you the double protection you need. No more worrying about sweat stains or their embarrassing pit rings, just all day freshness, all day dryness. And Mando's starter pack is perfect for new customers. You'll get that solid stick deodorant. They're going to hook you up with the cream tube deodorant. That's for your asshole and your bald meat. And you get 2 free products of your choice, like mini body wash and deodorant wipes. You even get free shipping. And as a special offer for our listeners, new customers can get 20% off site-wide with our exclusive code. Use the code MyWorld at shopmando.com for 20% off site-wide plus free shipping. That's shopmando.com. Shopmando.com. Please support our show and tell them we sent you. Mando's got you covered with deodorant plus sweat control. Say goodbye to sweat stains and hello to long-lasting freshness.
Connie, can I give you a Cody Mando story? I'm looking for the text. I'm not going to get it in time. Literally, he got a new lady, right? Miss Emily. Yep. So Mama Karen's got to be Mama Karen. So Codes puts on his Mando in the morning, goes to school, comes home. We're going to go pick her up and dinner and all this. And he's like, I'm going to take a shower. And Karen just says, Cody, make sure you wash your damn armpits and, just being mom and all this. He texts her about 15 seconds later, right before he got in the shower. Mom, Mando works. Please don't tell me that again. There's your Mando code, my world.
I know. Well, I'm not trying to get cart before the horse, but are you going to teach him about the cream tube one day? Because that's for other areas, you know.
Grundle, right? And you call it the
Grundle. You like that code?
I love that code. So Mando, folks, it works. Cody will testify.
Something else that works is Samoa Joe. What a big week he's got ahead of him. We are big fans of Samoa Joe here on this program. Of course, you really helped put him on the map. Gosh, what feels like forever ago with TNA. And now he's back in the main events this weekend, challenging Hangman Adam Page in St. Louis. I'm going to be there. You're going to be there. You can check it out on HBO Max or anywhere you enjoy pay-per-view. Hangman Adam Page versus Samoa Joe is the main event. We've got an incredible I Quit match with Darby Allin and John Moxley. The women's world title is going to be on the line with Statlander and Tony Storm. We've got to talk about what Takeshita did over the weekend. We'll do that in a moment, but he's teaming with Okada to take on Brodito. This could steal the show. Kyle Fletcher will be in there for the TNT title against Mark Briscoe, easily my favorite television character right now. We've got a $500,000 tag team match with the Young Bucks taking on Jurassic Express. They're back together again. And the Demand will be in there with the Hurt Syndicate. We've even got Thekla and Jamie Hayter. Something for everybody this weekend. It feels like AEW always delivers on pay-per-view. It's happening this weekend in St. Louis. I'm going to be there. Jeff's going to be there. All the top guys from ad-free shows will be there. Tickets are on sale now at AEWTIX.com. Or, of course, you can grab it on pay-per-view. But I really wanted to single in on this Samoa Joe conversation. We've talked a lot about TNA today. And I wanted to ask you, like, why do you think Samoa Joe has always been like the type of performer that you could put behind glass and break it in case of emergency? I'm not saying that that's what Tony Khan did here, but I'm saying we've seen him positioned mostly as a trios. But when they announced him getting the title shot against Hangman Adam Page, instant credibility and believability with the fan base. Samoa Joe has this aura about him, and maybe it's his in-ring style. It feels not exactly like Brock Lesnar, but more meat and potatoes like Brock Lesnar, if that makes sense. Lots of strikes, lots of suplexes. There's this aura and air of credibility with Samoa Joe that a lot of performers don't have. Is that it, or is there something else that's that secret sauce about Samoa Joe?
At the end of the day, Joe's talent. No other really way to slice it and dice it, but I'll kind of elaborate on this. We just kind of talked about Team 3D, the Dudleys, however you want to call it, Hardys. They, coming on the scene. When I go back to when Joe was put on the national scene, and a lot of folks saw Joe for the first time in what year was that, Conrad? 06, 07, 08. The first big, he was rolling through people, never got beat, the undefeated streak. He was rolling. And when Kurt made the jump, it was like, oh boy, this is now Joe's met his match. And again, things happen exactly the way they're supposed to happen. When Joe headbutted Kurt in that opening in-ring, I think in a lot of ways, and we obviously shout out Kevin Sullivan and post-production through the years. I mean, we showed the clip of a bloody Joe, and no matter the build, wherever it may be, but Joe's foundation is where I'm going with. The foundation of Samoa Joe was done over about 2 years. I can tell you lots of different talent, I've referenced Vince McMahon on here multiple times, how he would build a talent, for a year, just give the guys a consistent, doesn't have to win every match, but just a consistent build. He did that with me and many, many others. But when we did that with Joe with kid gloves, and it built and it built and it built and it built and it built. And again, that's number two behind number one, Joe's talent. Joe has the ability. He was one of the young ones in his family. So 1984 Olympics in LA, he, was doing performances then way as a little kid. So Joe's a performer at heart. So that's the number one thing, is that his aura, he doesn't do all the craziness, but he's a guy 250, 260 that can do a tope. His facials, he knows how to carry himself through the years. He's just stayed consistent. A lot of times people don't even realize, I'll call it kind of the down years at WWE. They weren't the most prosperous, if you will. He was moved to, announcing and all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, just like you said, when you pull the card out of Joe, an in-ring performer, that foundation, number two, it's built. But number one is Joe knows he's a pro. He knows how to do it. I'm very curious to see this battle. Conrad, Saturday, a lot of times, and I know this firsthand, really with both guys, but, when I got out of the ring with Hangman, especially that strap match, I mean, you've been in a match in a very highly respectful way. Hangman is going to know he's been in a Samoa Joe match Saturday night. There ain't no doubt. He will get his ass handed to him a few times during that match. So it's going to be a hard hitting affair. I'm excited for both guys. Can't wait to get around to 0 Hour. We're going to have a little fun. Top Guy weekend, but Conrad, it goes without saying that is by far the match I'm looking forward to most out of Saturday, because AEW does pay-per-view, but this is going to be a good one, a really good one.
Hey, I want to ask you, when you first brought Joe into TNA in 2005, what was the long-term plan? I mean, I know he went undefeated for like over a year, and then Kurt Angle showed up and ended that streak. But had you not landed Kurt, did you have an end for that streak in mind?
So after 2 or 3, and I don't want to say early in Joe, let's bring him in. Highly recommended. I think I've told you the story. Mick Foley could not have sung his praises enough. We brought him in, and it takes me back to those meetings, whether it was our DVD dealers up in Minneapolis or toy dealers in Jersey and Toys R Us and all that, Conrad, going back to kind of the alternative. WWE, from a historical perspective, it was the heavyweights and others. That was the I call it the booking philosophy. I wanted to really truly look at, okay, we're going to have 4 distinct divisions. And yes, the knockouts did come online. They weren't out of the gate, but from the get-go, it was X Division, tag, and main event. And I wanted all 3 divisions to be able to main event cards. I think there's a lot of value into that, where not every card, the main event, has to be the heavyweights or the NWA World Title or the TNA World Heavyweight Title. That was my vision. And so obviously the heavy and tag, you can do that just by aesthetics. There's 4 guys or 2 guys. But when the X Division, there was, I think a lot of people thought kind of we were giving it lip service when you made AJ the X Division champion and he's the main event. Well, it's still kind of the division for little guys, or maybe that cruiserweight stigma was stuck to it. But look, all the X Division guys, fantastic. When Joe came in, Conrad, I knew there was going to be a real opportunity for us to double down on our truly our slogan. It's not about weight limits. It's about no limits. That, okay, without saying traditional, the heavyweight style was the traditional pomp and circumstance. That whole cadence that the industry had seen since it became on television in the 50s. But as far as a main event, we'll call it high flying, style of wrestling, high risk, high reward, it hadn't really done that. When I saw Joe and knew that he could do the dives, and we'll call it in the Mexican terminology, be a base for an AJ or a Daniels or whatever it may be, but he could still do his stuff in there. Conrad, that was the early plans of, let's get him on a roll, and he's going to elevate. I'll just say in broad strokes, he's going to pull the X Division up. He's not going to be going quote unquote down to it. I never viewed it that way, but I knew, even my dad, hell, years later when I thought he was established, Bischoff hated it. So it was always kind of a point of, oh no, this, that, anyway. So I wanted to stay consistent. And I really looked at Joe and said, he will elevate the X Division.
I do want to ask you, when we're talking about Samoa Joe and his successful run that he had in TNA, how much of that was based off of his 2-year run as the Ring of Honor champ? I mean, he was a machine there. Were you thinking, hey, we can just recreate that for a bigger audience?
I never, because I just wasn't involved in
I got you.
a Ring of Honor watcher. They didn't have a traditional outlet. And I've said this, I don't know if it was Borash, because there was a time frame that I watched less wrestling than ever. And that was in these kind of formative days, because I didn't get to watch Raw every week, and I didn't watch Ring of Honor, that kind of era when I was just TNA and only TNA. And I'm not so sure that was productive, but it was the nature of the beast.
Were you not watching those other programs because you didn't want to be influenced by those ideas, or you were just busy?
Work. Yeah. Strict work.
So let me ask you one more thing about, Joe's place in TNA history. If there was like a Mount Rushmore of TNA, the stars that helped define TNA, it feels like people, especially during the Spike years, they always talk about you. They talk about AJ. They talk about Kurt Angle. Is the other guy Samoa Joe, or is it Sting, in your opinion?
You see, and that's why I think you almost have to take me off and keep Sting on and put Joe on. It depends on kind of what he's definitely up there. If you look, because the Spike years, I think that's what I heard. The Spike years.
Yeah.
I obviously the foundation from, we'll call it 02 to when Kurt got there, that I really pulled back, and obviously my situation at home took me out for a little bit, but that was the kind of the time frame that I did everything I could as a talent. But when Kurt came on board, I think you almost have to look at Joe, AJ, Sting, and Kurt.
I want to ask you about the other big news. We woke up on Monday morning here in America to the news that Takeshita is now the New Japan World Champion. He's the IWGP Heavyweight Champion. He defended or defeated Zack Sabre Jr. for that honor. And this is big news, of course. We have usually seen Takeshita in AEW, but it looks like he's got a lot of road to hoe here with New Japan. I think he's actually under contract with New Japan, DDT, and AEW. We're big Takeshita fans here on the program. I'm super glad that he's got his opportunity here. I can't wait for you to give us your thoughts about him being the next guy to run with the mantle here.
So I didn't know that he was still on contract at DDT. So it's going to be real interesting how all this plays out, because the ace Tanahashi, he's running the show, running the ship over there. But Conrad, and I've shared this, Wrestle Kingdom 9, but when I saw highlights and was really getting to know that product, because I had been an observer off and on through years, all this, but really understanding the charisma of Shinsuke Nakamura, I was, there has been a time in my life that I would say that is the best professional Japanese wrestler I've ever seen live. And I know there's the Kobashi. There's so many people you can go back in history. So I don't want to get in that discussion, but I'd seen perform live was pretty special. And then I'd watch different things. And then you see Tanahashi and you go, oh man, that charisma. He can go, he can do it all. And so Nakamura and Tanahashi, and then along comes Okada, and you just say, damn, he won again. And then you see the highlights, and then you hear the stories, and no matter who you hear it from through the years, Okada, and then watch, he was really good. And Conrad, it was that Revolution, but when I saw Takeshita and Ospreay, I think that was Greensboro, but wherever it was, I think I shared it on the program here, Conrad. I just said, man, to be in a ring and to go 20 minutes with Ospreay and people leave that match going, I'm not so sure Takeshita wasn't the most athletic guy in the ring. With your opponent being Will, that says a lot. So I don't have to tell you how big a fan I am of Takeshita. I'm very curious to see where he goes from here, because they're saddling him up. I mean, he is the lead dog. How's that going to work out? Because he is a big part of current AEW programming. But man, oh man, congrats in so many ways to the guy. He's special. I know you know that, but I mean, he is really a special talent.
Another guy on the Ric Flair's last match card. How about that? That show, Greensboro, you're talking about, Revolution, Sting's last match. Fans on Cage match rated the Sting's last match, tag team match with him and Darby Allin against the Young Bucks, 9.45 out of 10.
Wow.
And that was the second best match on the card, according to the critics over at cagematch.net. second only to Ospreay and Takeshita, which was 9.48. But if you took a look and said, hey, what did old Dave Meltzer think about that match? He gave the match you just shouted out, Ospreay and Takeshita at Revolution last year, 5 3/4 stars. On a scale of 5, it was 5 3/4.
And I wonder if I'm not the only one, because when I watched it, I went, he's more athletic than Will multiple times during the match. His timing, his dexterity, his I'll call it ring presence, incredible, man. Incredible. He is really special.
Just want to throw this out there. Here's what makes their match this weekend that much more interesting. I think a lot of fans, myself included, still think of Okada when we think of the New Japan World Championship. And to think that we all think that belt is synonymous with Okada, but now Takeshita has it. Well, who is Takeshita's tag team partner this weekend? Okada. And who are they wrestling? Brodito. I bring that up because the last person to beat Takeshita in AEW, well, technically it was Ring of Honor, the last singles loss he had was to Bandito. And it was in the incredible, arguably match of the year that we saw, the Ring of Honor Supercard of Honor this past July in Dallas. That match this weekend, it's going to be big on story. And we know with those guys, I mean, I know we're going way inside, but I'm a big Brody fan. And the idea that he gets to be the base for all the crazy stuff that we're going to see. And just, you want to talk about big time, strong, athletic. This is going to be an incredible match. That tag match to me is the one. I know you're looking forward to Joe and Hangman, and I am too, but that tag match to me, that's the one to circle.
I sound like a broken record, but it's the truth. Nobody does pay-per-view better than AEW. And we're pointing out the reasons why, because in a lot of ways, to me, Joe Hanger is a must-see. You just got me excited because I was in my rental car, had me a nice Suburban, Connie, coming back from a baseball appearance, and I was watching the Ring of Honor pay-per-view, and I can remember, got to keep my eyes on the road, but hearing the inflections in the announcers and then watching and then hearing and driving and this. But Conrad, multiple times, my man Ian convinced me that we're going home. This is the 1, 2, 3, and it wasn't. Yeah, it'll be a good one, man. It'll be a good one. Great.
Speaking of a good one, we saw a great one this past weekend. It was early in the morning in Australia, but we saw AJ Styles don his old school gear to challenge John Cena in one of John's final appearances in WWE. And I don't know if you got to see the whole match, but even the introductions were a little tip of the cap. John Cena handed a sheet of paper to the announcer, who made sure to introduce AJ Styles as the epitome of total nonstop action, which I thought was cool. Yeah. And I think for a lot of longtime TNA fans, they would agree with that. I think even AJ was shocked when the Bullet Club got a shout out. Your old faction, it's been well established. You're one of the foundational members of Bullet Club.
Easy.
I love this match, man. And I think it represents almost everything that I love about pro wrestling. AJ is not somebody who tweets a lot or spends a lot of time on social media anymore, but he made sure before that match to post a cover from Pro Wrestling Illustrated from 20 years ago with John Cena on one side in his jorts and AJ Styles in the white and blue, exactly what we knew him as in TNA. And then all these years later, they got to have the match in arguably the wildest environment that either of these guys could have ever wrestled in front of. There was a sea of John Cena merch in the crowd. I mean, there were more John Cena shirts than I remember seeing for any one talent ever. Fans were just absolutely on fire for this, but it was the tribute stuff that they did during the match that got everybody talking. Maybe the one that resonated the most was when we saw Bray Wyatt's finish, the Sister Abigail, and John Cena kissed AJ Styles, much like Bray used to before he hits the move. And then the Fireflies came out and John just looked around, and I think we all felt it at the same time. That's what makes wrestling so special. And the fan culture is what makes it so special. because yeah, they were both doing tribute moves to their favorite guys. I mean, you saw a ton of them. Even AJ was doing some callbacks for Sting and Bobby Roode and Kazarian and so many others. I know that AJ has announced that next year will be his last match. He's going to wrestle one more year, and 2026 will be his final year. But even if those guys shut it down after that, I don't know how we can improve on that from a nostalgia perspective. What do you think, Jeff?
Again, my man Codes. But I got I guess it was WWE or maybe as a site, whatever. But I got the intro sent to me via text from a few different people, and all the different narratives. Like, man, have they already bought TNA? And I'm like, it certainly looks like it, but because they went heavy into that. I thought that AJ in the short tights, that's cool. Obviously, all the callbacks. Again, we're going to go back to we talked earlier. Bubba, Team 3D and the Hardys, the emotional deal, but in front of a rabid crowd and all those yellow shirts and the Australian audience that doesn't get much wrestling, and they got that. I mean, special, dude. I mean, it just, again, how our industry can really connect emotionally with folks on so many levels. Hats off, man. I thought it was special. Again, you just don't get to see that. Yeah. Hats off, man.
Super special. I enjoyed the match. I know everybody watching it did. And I know that you will enjoy our friends at Magic Spoon. I've been a big believer in this product. Jeff has too. By now, you already know that every serving of Magic Spoon high protein cereal has 13 grams of protein, 0 grams of sugar, and only 4 grams of net carbs. They come in your favorite nostalgic flavors: fruity, cocoa, frosted. If that sounds familiar, it's by design. It tastes just like the cereal you grew up eating. It's been reinvented from your childhood taste buds, except without all the sugar and instead packed with a bunch of protein. I also want to give a shout out and some special love to the high protein treats from Magic Spoon. They're crispy, they're crunchy, they're airy, and an easy way to get 12 grams of protein on the go. They come in mouth-watering flavors like marshmallow, chocolatey peanut butter, and dark chocolate. I really love that double chocolate. I know you will too. Both of these options are great on the go. They're great for a pre or even a post workout, even as a midnight snack. And right now you can get $5 off your next order at magicspoon.com/myworld, or look for Magic Spoon on Amazon or in your nearest grocery store. That's magicspoon.com/myworld for $5 off.
5,
All right.
4, 3, 2, 1. It's time to count down the top 5. Brought to you by SaveWithConrad.com.
We've teased it last week. We're finally here. We broke down some of the all-time greats last week, but now we're going to break down the top 5 decade definers. Who were the performers that defined their decade? We'll start with Bruno Sammartino for the 1960s. Why does Bruno get your nod for number 5 here, Jeff?
And I absolutely, Conrad, I'll back all the way up on this. When I got the message, hey man, come up with your kind of GOAT of each decade. I said, okay, let me not just go off of kind of my gut, my thought. Let me do a little bit of a research here. Conrad, when you really look, because again, the in each territory, I think there is so many different opportunities to say, okay, man, oh man, in the 60s, how do you not go with this wrestler? Well, he was regional. There was another guy just as big, but when you look at the sellouts and the drawing power and in a lot of ways, the cultural impact, it's a different era, different time. Most people listen to this weren't even alive during this era. I was born in 67, but Conrad, to this day, and look, we're going way out. You go around New York City and mention professional wrestling, you're probably going to get Hogan one. And I dare to say, if you're into a conversation, you're going to get a Bruno right out of it. The guy, his box office appeal for his era was on the par or maybe bigger than a Lawler in Memphis, a Hogan in the Hulkamania eras. He's right up there at the tip top. So he looked the part. He wrestled the part. There just so many things that he did that they'll obviously never ever, different time, different place. They'll never be another Bruno.
Just to add some context too, I think that he's got, when you're talking about big draws like you were talking about, I don't think for the majority of his run that fans under the age of 14 were even allowed into Madison Square Garden. Like if you were a little kid, you couldn't even come in. The idea that he sold out Madison Square Garden with adults like this is really impressive, especially when you say so much of the WWF that I grew up on was aimed at kids. And then to go back and think, well, there was a time where kids weren't even allowed in the building. It's just kind of crazy. Also interesting. I'll admit, I didn't know this. I guess as the story goes, have you heard this, that Bruno was offered the shot to be the NWA world champion, but based on the money and the schedule he was making at the time, he turned it down? Is that real?
I mean, that's rumor has it. I can see that. Here was something too that, we are all, I say we, I just think the United States, again, I'm not the expert on this, but I have traveled coast to coast for Jesus now 35 plus years. And I'll say that, yeah, in so many ways, we're a massive melting pot. So many cultures, so many different races, so many ethnic groups, whatever it's all, I wish you could say one big happy family, but it is so diverse. You're talking about the 60s, Conrad, 70s. It was not, and he appealed across the board. And like you said, kids weren't even really a part of the equation. It's his track record, specifically in the Garden. It's hard to wrap my head around it, huh, Conrad? When you really think about, now, wait a minute, every month for how long?
Right.
It's crazy.
Well, let's talk about who comes in at number 4 on your top 5 lists of decade definers. And this one, I got to tell you, you're cheating. It kind of defeats the point of us saying top 5 if you just arbitrarily have a 5-way tie, but that's what you're claiming here at number 4. I'm throwing the flag. Dusty Rhodes, Ric Flair, Jerry Lawler, The Sheik, Carlos Colon. Did you run out of fingers? I mean, what's going on here?
Connie, you can't tell me that Ric Flair was more important in Charlotte than Jerry Lawler was in Memphis, than Dusty was in Florida, that Carlos wasn't in San Juan, that Sheik wasn't in Detroit. How the hell are you going to decide that? Because from a business perspective, from a box office perspective, from the business perspective, look, you're throwing the flag on me. If I have to pick one, I got to go what I know in detail, because Flair did travel and Dusty's longevity is not matched by Lawler. Carlos was a startup, but super important. And the Sheik, you can't really say that he had these, he could work with, and he could work with multiple opponents, all this. But if you want to talk about the most well-rounded, but I didn't want to go right back to Lawler, but Lawler defined to me, it's how do you, what box didn't he check in the 70s? Heel babyface, box office, multiple opponents, cultural effect, celebrity outside of professional wrestling, stayed there, didn't travel, just very occasionally, homegrown. So I'm gonna take my red challenge flag out of my pocket. I'm gonna throw it right on the field. I'm gonna challenge you. Your flag's going to be overruled, and I'll go with Lawler's number 4.
See, I don't think Flair was at his peak in the 70s. I mean, he didn't win his first world title until 81. He becomes the man really in 83. Lawler, I don't think traveled. So I would struggle with putting him there, but I saw what you did with Bruno. If this were my top 5 and it's not, I might have said Andre. And if I couldn't go Andre, I would probably have went Dusty or the Sheik. But I just don't think I would have went.
Oh, Conrad.
I think it was too early.
Now, I bragged on myself about doing a little bit, just making sure I wasn't missing anything. How do you Silva completely scratched this number 4 for me.
Who's number 4 then? Who is it?
Andre.
Andre is the man. There you go. Hey, how about that?
He drew money everywhere.
In every town, every continent, every territory, he was the 70s.
So much so because Vince Sr., yeah, man, Conrad, you're on it. Because Vince Sr. saw it, but also he didn't have the vision that his son had, but he looked at it and said, all right, these NWA group, they got their touring champion. That's fine. But I'm going to get the real attraction and put him under contract. And I'll book him out. And he'll always have a place here. I'll pay him well. But if he needs to go to Montreal, if he needs to go to Toronto, if he needs to go to Memphis, he needs to go wherever. He made money in Japan. I can book him. Yeah. Conrad, it is a no-brainer. Damn. I'm mad at myself. 70s, Andre. There's not a close second when you look at it from that perspective. Conrad, that's why you're.
That?
That's why
so Bruno's is 60. Andre's 70s. Let's look at number 3, the 80s. I feel like this is the biggest no-brainer of them all. It's got to be Hulk Hogan, right, Jeff?
Yes. I mean, we talked early in the pod today when he beat the Sheik, and that era was ushered in with the music and the theme, and yes, the Rocky movie and the celebrity status, but the WrestleMania era and the pay-per-view era and just all the different things that Vince, the promoter, put around him. But if you don't have that engine with a slicked up, horsepower that was willing to, Conrad, Vince shared this at the memorial about how hard a worker Hogan was. I have to really think that through and go, imagine if he would have had, I won't call out names, but there's people now that, limited dates and this and that. Yeah, Hogan sacrificed his hips and his knees and his family and all that kind of stuff. But he did it. I mean, he went to work, and the business paid him well for decades. But he's the one who made the conscious decision to go to work, all those shots, all those dates. It's been covered now in his passing. But, hey, man, he broke in and Hero and the Florida deal, and he worked a couple of territories and then worked Vern and then worked Japan and then back to Vern and then WWF and all that. So he paid his dues, and when he had the opportunity, he didn't let off the gas, and he rode it hard for years and years and years. And yeah, he's no doubt the 80s guy.
I think that's the biggest no-brainer, perhaps anywhere on the list. But I am interested in hearing why you chose number 2 the way you did. There's no arguing about Jeff's number 2 on his top 5 decade definers. When we take a look at the 1990s, Jeff brought us Stone Cold Steve Austin. Now, there's no arguing that 98 and 99, he's the man. In 97, he gets all that crazy momentum going. And he had a really nice run through the earlier 90s as a TV champion, a tag champion, a U.S. champion. But, man, you put a lot of stock in 98 and 99. Is it just about the Austin 316 boom and how hot it was? It overrode everything else, in your opinion?
This was a tough one. You pointed it out. But if I'm buying stock in the 90s in a particular wrestler, who got me the biggest ROI? And I went down the list. Just look at Bret. Bret was a tag wrestler, and we talked earlier. He had a company that was coming off the steroid era, and I think Nash just made a recent comment about how Bret invested in the brand and the fan base and signed autographs and night after night, and the European tours and even in America and all this. And like the credit that Bret he really plowed a lot of ground early 90s. The decade didn't end like he wanted it to, or many other people. So he's obviously in that conversation. I also looked at Conrad. It's hard to deny Hogan's effect in the 90s. Without him being the third man in NWO, where does all that go? I'm not sure. Another guy who spent his entire 10-year run, for better or worse, but he was the main event guy. And without Sting, you just kind of look at WCW just there, Flair, all this. But Conrad, I'm going back to kind of buying the stock and wherever it may be. Buy a young Steve Austin. He came out of good old USWA. Teamed up Pillman and TV Champ, and had his little short run in ECW. That's all that. But you just and look, I know I'm biased because I was there. Whether we had our run in or not, that's all water under the bridge. But I witnessed firsthand, and by design, I wasn't thinking, but I put him like when you're there and the promo and before I got there and watching the TVs. There was no question anybody in this industry knew that when it clicked like a talent hasn't clicked. You'd have to go back to 82 Hogan when he came on the scene. There was nobody that took the industry by storm. Yeah, Hogan was around before Hulkamania cranked, and Stone Cold Steve Austin was Stunning Steve and all that. But, man, when his rocket took off in 97, you just it like, how do you put somebody over him? And I know we're debatable and we can argue and this and that and this, that. But Conrad, I just think at the end of the day, Stone Cold got so far higher than anybody else. What was it, 2018 or 19 in Dallas when he had the match with KO and all that? I mean, that legacy, and he's done bits and pieces through the years, and I know all this, but that foundation that, and again, I've said it many, many times on here, you had a heel that was started on television in 1983, 84 in Vince McMahon. I'm the boss. Now, he didn't do overt things, but he was positioned as the boss all through the deal. And then he was steroid and that whole picture, and he's a trial. So he was a character in the public for years. And when he revealed himself as Mr. McMahon, there wasn't a person watching that program that couldn't relate to the evil empire of employee-employer relationship. And that magic, it just took the industry to a whole nother level. To me, Austin McMahon is the single thread that took WWE public, and TKO wouldn't have acquired him had that storyline not have taken place, had Steve not carried that ball like he did.
Well, we're finally here. Let's get to number one on Jeff's top 5 decade definers. Probably also not a surprise. The one and only John Cena comes in at number 1. You want to talk about longevity? He had a lot of it. Now I know we're talking 2000, so that'd be 2000 to 2010. And there's no denying that from about 04 on, it was the John Cena show. He becomes world champ in 05. And he carried the WWE in 05, 06, 07, 08, 09, and 10. No brainer. John Cena was the top wrestler in the world during those years.
And you know what? Here's something that I don't think John and others, but I don't think John will get. I don't even think people put it in this stratosphere. In that, and you could go back and look at, now everybody's accustomed to. I mean, we did, Texas did a stadium show, Wembley. WWE's doing Saudi, and now we're thinking in terms of baseball stadium shows, football stadium shows, and premium live events, and just this massive a type deal. when you go back to the 2000s, Conrad, and I lived it, you know, my timing of starting an alternative brand, it was what it was. It happened in the exactly way. But you talk about maybe the worst time to start a startup wrestling industry would be in 2001, 2, 3, 4, because Vince kicked his competition's ass. There was a number 1 and number 2, and there was no longer a number 2. And for all intents and purposes, you know, we're on pay-per-view only for the first 2.5 years. John was given the ball as a cold product that wasn't moving a lot of tickets. I just think that John doesn't get the credit for kind of his ability to put, in so many ways, and Vince is well aware of this, put the WWE brand on his back and built it, and hard work, and did all the Make-A-Wish, and did all the appearances, and did all the morning drive time radio and TV, all the grind like Hogan did in the 80s. John knew what he signed up for, and I got a ton of respect for his work ethic. And I think that's the single greatest asset that made him the John Cena of the 2000s, his work ethic.
Well, somebody else that wants to be working for you is Legal Buddy. You know, life happens fast. 1 minute you're driving home from work, and the next you see flashing lights in your rearview mirror. Your heart skips, your hands tighten on the wheel, and you start asking yourself, what do I do now? That's when you need someone on your side. And with the Legal Buddy app, you can connect with a local attorney in seconds, not hours, not days, but right when you need the help. Whether it's a DWI, a car accident, a criminal charge, or even just a traffic ticket, the Legal Buddy app puts real legal support right in your pocket. Imagine having an attorney on call, ready to guide you through some of life's most stressful moments. This is not a call center. It's not a waiting game. It's direct access to a lawyer who understands your situation and your community, and one who can step in right away. Think about it. When trouble knocks, do you want to face it alone, or would you rather have the confidence of knowing a professional is already on your side? That's the peace of mind that Legal Buddy gives you. And here's how easy it is. Download the Legal Buddy app at legalbuddyapp.com. Register today and use the referral code LEGAL for your chance to win a $250 Amazon gift card. Life is unpredictable. Accidents happen, tickets happen, mistakes happen. But when they do, you don't have to go through it alone. The Legal Buddy app, always on your side. Download the app today and enter the referral code LEGAL. Jeff, before we wrap it up here today, I don't know if you've had a chance to look at the calendar today and recognize what today is. It's October 13th.
Yeah.
Does that ring a bell to you?
Day after Karen's birthday, October 12th. We're about 13 days away from Cody's birthday. He let us know that yesterday. Wow. Lay it on me.
It's not just the brother and sister, Dave Silva's kids, his twins' birthday. They turned 16 today. That's not it. It's also my 7-year anniversary with Megan. That's not it. It is a magical day in Jeff Jarrett history, almost a story of what could have been.
Oh boy.
This happened October 13th, like 22 years ago.
Oh boy. What do you got?
In the United States. I've never won the NWA title in the United States. I want to become NWA champion, IWGP champion.
Talking about unfinished business, Hogan. Yeah, you come out of the cocoon. Yeah, Jimmy Hart. Yeah, come on, come out of the cocoon, Jimmy Hart. Yeah, Hulk Hogan, you want to talk about finished business? I'll tell you finished business. I'll tell you finished business, Hogan. Hogan, you want to talk about unfinished business? I'll tell you one thing. You get out under the cocoon. Get that out. You got the power. Jonah, help me. Help me. Come on, we need some help in here. Get some help. Come on. Come on, get some help.
How about that? October 13th, all those years ago. I know we've talked about it in the archives, but man, this is a pretty eventful day in your life, is it not? I mean, that had to feel like you were on the cusp of the biggest opportunity ever, maybe?
Well, I've told the story here, Conrad, when Hulk said, "Hey, I've got an idea." I'm like, "All right, what do you got?" And he kind of laid out, because that was Chono in the shot, and come on over, and if you can figure out a way, and we'll do a press conference, and let's set this thing up right. And if I won't, and I said, maybe if you won't come to TNA, I'm going to take TNA to you, because that was kind of the line I used for quite a while. And he's like, yeah, and all this. Okay. Anyway, so Conrad, I've said it on here. I used miles to fly over there because it was all kind of last minute. And I'm like, holy shit. Anyway, and when people like Hogan was never going to come to TNA, and I just go, but you don't really know the story in the early years. And yeah, he's a chess player and all this, but him bloody in the Japanese press and did all that. It was like, man, I'm startup company. It was, God, if we can just pull this off. And that guitar right there, because I had to get it in last second, that is an old WCW guitar that I had when they shut down. They shipped me several. That was one that I grabbed and had to carry it over through customs and all that kind of stuff. But wow, Conrad, what an anniversary. Silva's kids' birthdays, you and Megan, and me cracking old Hulkster. But it was, and years later, Don West, they did an online vote. That was voted the #1 moment in TNA history back in 11 or 12 or 13 or something like that.
Man, it's interesting to think, what could have been. I know you were hot to trot on it at that time. We know ultimately he went back to WWE, and I know he did have, a couple of matches, including his final match in TNA, but Hulk in 02 versus Hulk 7 or 8 years later, light years different, right?
And that's where it just wasn't meant to be. It's just timing. Like, there is so many things, good and bad, that I look back on my career, and I'm grateful for my career, the good timing and the bad timing, but it all works out exactly how it's supposed to. But that Hogan narrative between 02 and 05-ish, Conrad, it would have, at the end of the day, I truly think Vince knew that better than everybody. I mean, this simple. I mean, it's truly this simple. Vince McMahon knew, hey, I may not want to do business with Hulk right now, but I damn sure don't want him over there doing business. It's not good for anything. And maybe he looked at it, well, I thought that 10 years ago when he went to WC, when he went and did Thunder in Paradise, Dan Bischoff hired his ass and they kicked my ass for 83 weeks. I don't know. But yeah, timing is everything. And in getting Hogan in 02, 03, 04, 05 would have been, it definitely would have changed the history of the company.
As far as I can tell, you only had one real singles match with him, and I'm hesitant to even call that a real singles match. It was a Nitro. Billy Kidman was a special guest referee. It went to a no contest. It was more about the story of Kidman and Hogan. You never really got to have a real match with Hogan, right?
We had maybe a few conversations about that. Yes. Yeah, the timing, and look, he was not a fan of the WCW era during all that, or certainly all this, but God, in so many ways, I would have loved that night at bat. Think about the difference if none of that mess would have happened. Like, hey, Vince, let's just, Brusso or whatever it is.
So you're talking about Bash at the Beach 2000 now.
Yeah. Just Hogan go out and beat me for the title. Like, and maybe get a return in a month or two, or Nitro or whatever, just how different would have been. But no, Conrad, to your point, never had the single. Nope. It never lined up.
It's one of those great what ifs. Is there anybody else? I'm not saying you're calling it a career. You're not pulling an AJ and announcing, hey, next year's my last year. But are there any other boxes? Because I mean, once upon a time, I don't think you would have ever imagined you would have been in Ric Flair's last match. You know what? Now that I'm thinking about it, What is it about you and guys from the 80s, icons from the 80s? You want to beat them up and leave them bloody? Like, what's up with that?
Oh, it's in my DNA. I don't know. No, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. You know, I think Jerry's time has passed. That'd been fun. Last match with Lawler, but no. You know, well, you know what, Conrad, and you know this better than anybody. There's no way I could have planned the last couple of years. It just no way. It just, oh wow, this opportunity's here. It happened. Okay, I'll pivot here. I'm excited to see what God has in store for me over the next year or so in my career. We'll see. Me and you obviously are talking lots of 40-year stuff, but we'll see how things develop.
Well, I know what God has in store for us next week. We're going to be taking a look at the very first Bound for Glory. We're going to be breaking down your top 5 biggest Bound for Glory moments. You set the record straight at the beginning of the show. You consider that to be like the TNA equivalent of WrestleMania. So we'll talk about all of that next week. Of course, you and I will be together before that because we're going to be hanging out at Top Guy Weekend. If you haven't already, I encourage you to go check out adfreeshows.com. It's more than just a paywall. We've got a little family, a little community built for ourselves, but there's a whole ton of bonus content you can't find anywhere else. Lex Luger's there, Godfather's there, David Crockett, Mike Chioda, Tully Blanchard, the Blue Meanie, and more. We watched the pay-per-view together this past Saturday, myself, Meanie, and all the folks over at adfreeshows.com. If you're looking for more wrestling friends, look no further than adfreeshows.com. That's really what it's all about. And with that in mind, I want to love on Travis Anderson. He's been with us over at adfreeshows.com since 2020. And Adam Hicks, man, he just signed up for adfreeshows.com just last week. Welcome to the club. We appreciate you guys being there. It starts at just $9 a month. There's more than 100,000 hours worth of bonus content. Don't you dare miss it. It's adfreeshows.com. Jeff, I'm fired up, man. Got a big Wrestle Dream pay-per-view. We're going to have some fun at Top Guy Weekend. You got Summer Ball Summit next week. You got Jeff Jarrett's All-Star Super Slam. We're revisiting, I can't believe this is real, 20 years ago since the first Bound for Glory. And, oh, by the way, you and I will be in the same building when Alabama takes those Volunteers to the woodshed this Saturday. I'm fired up.
I can't wait. Speaking, and you always like to do this, and I always like, damn, how does he multitask during a podcast? I never do that, but I have some late breaking news.
Okay.
I want to share with you. And most of the audience doesn't give a shit, and you don't either. But the Tennessee Titans fired their head coach this morning, minutes ago.
Love to see it. Those cowards, I knew they were orange, but now they're yellow too. They got no sack at all, and what's left, Alabama's going to take to the woodshed. A 12.5 point favorite.
Wait, I'm talking Tennessee Titans fired their coach. Wait.
Oh, I thought they fired. I mean, I thought Heupel was out of there. I was like, damn, that was fast.
Shut the hell up. Wait, Bama's favored by 12
and a half. Yeah. Don't shortchange me. 12.5. Yeah. I know what you're thinking.
Guess what? Right here at the end of the show, I'll take 12.5.
I'm not giving you 12.5.
Oh, coward.
Well, what? Coward? Hang on. Are you just straight? You're scared to bet straight up?
Wait. I ask you a question first.
Hang on.
No. I ask a question first. You won't give me what the experts in Vegas, and look, you, Cassio, Shuley, and other experts that have visited Vegas, you calling them liars? 12.5 points. Let's go.
What are the stakes, Jeff? Because here's what I would love to see. I would really love for you to pull out heel Jeff Jarrett next week and get on here and say, "Oh, you may have beat our ass, but only by 11." I would just love to see you do that with a straight face and like take a victory. I know you would.
Do it in a minute. We're a powerhouse.
Just for that, I'm going to agree, but we got to come up with the stakes because I'd love to see you strut that ass in Hendersonville for Jeff Jarrett All-Star Super Slam that's happening next Thursday, the 23rd in Hendersonville. Tickets on sale now at ProWrestlingTix.com. If you do that in Houndstooth, you got a deal.
You know what? We may be able to capture this. Maybe we can come up between now and then a Top Guy exclusive Top Guy, do something that night at Top Guy. I don't know. I'm thinking out loud. We got to figure something out. Folks, tune in next week, and you may get to see not only the Vols get their hand raised, but me get to deliver Conrad. We got to figure the right stakes. Damn, got to think of something.
I can't wait until next week. You just get to pull a Tennessee Titans and you look right at the camera. And when I ask you, Jeff, what happened? How did the Volunteers lose? And you just reach in the old bag of tricks from the Tennessee Titans and you just say, we ass. And we are out of time. We'll see you next week right here on
My World.
Peace.